We don't tend to think of caves as being very exciting. They're dark, deep, rocky holes where the light can't get in, and there's no television or internet. They might make a good home for animals or hermits, but not so much for 21st century humans. Not all caves fit this description, though. Some of them are places of incredible character and stunning beauty. We've put some of the world's most amazing caves together for you in this video. While most caves are carved by nature, some have been created or enhanced by human hands. The Barbar Hill Caves are a great example of what we mean. Located in India, the Barbar Caves were carved during the days of the Maurya Empire over 2,300 years ago. The distinctive entrance to Lomas Rishi, the most famous of all the caves to be found here, is the earliest known surviving Chaitra arc. The design was a staple of rock architecture in India for centuries and may have started here. It's believed that builders created the design in wood first, and then moved on to replicate their work in rocks. Going back to times of antiquity, the caves were used as a sanctuary by religious sects, including Makali Gosala, the founder of the Ajivika sect. Some of the inscriptions that can be found within the caves also have Hindi and Buddhist relevance. The dual internal chambers of the caves have been polished, so that any chanting or singing that went on within them would echo. Staying in India for a moment, the subcontinent is also home to the Badami Cave temples, boasting some of the most accomplished and intricate stone carvings anywhere in the world. Scattered nearby the Bagalkot region, there are 4 of the cave temples in total. They're not quite as old as the Barbar Caves, but they've still been with us for a long time. It's believed initial work was completed on them during the 6th century. During the time of their construction, Badami was the heart of the whole Chalukya dynasty, which dominated this part of India for 200 years. The style of Hindu architecture found here, which is some of the earliest of its kind, served as a template for temple design across the whole country. Each of the 4 caves is dedicated to a different religious icon. For example, the 3rd cave contains carvings and writings dedicated to Vishnu. There may well be more at this site than we yet know. A smaller 5th cave was discovered within 2,000 feet of the 4th in 2015 and is still being investigated. The problem with caves often being underground is that they're sometimes difficult to find and remain hidden from human eyes for years. The Cueva de los Cristales was discovered by accident in the year 2000 when miners were digging an excavation hole in Chihuahua, Mexico. They could hardly believe their eyes when they peered into the cave they'd broken into, and it's easy to see why. It's also easy to see why the beautiful locations got its name. It translates into English as the Cave of the Crystals. Some of the individual crystals within the cave have gargantuan proportions. The largest of them is 40 feet long and weighs 55 tons. That makes it 20 times larger than any other crystal ever discovered. Scientists are still working on discovering the secrets of the cave. It's a difficult place to work because the temperature never dips below 127 degrees Fahrenheit. As well as the gorgeous crystals, researchers have found a previously unknown formation of gypsum and prehistoric pollen trapped within the rock formations. While the Cave of Crystals might be very hot, the Conger Cave in Russia is very cold. In fact, locals prefer to call it the Conger Ice Cave. This all-natural phenomenon is known as a karst cave, a type of cave which is formed when soluble rocks dissolve and distort over time. We don't know when it was first discovered, but the first official exploration of the cave happened in 1703. When Russian leader Peter the Great sent a team of experts in to map and investigate Conger. Although its aesthetically pleasing qualities are obvious, Conger Ice Cave didn't capture the public's imagination until the early years of the 20th century, when it became a popular tourist attraction. Visitors are invited to take one of 3 possible guided tours around the cave, the longest of which takes an hour and a half, covers nearly 2 miles, and is topped off with a laser light show. Inside the cave are a set of narrow stone steps known as the female tiers. Legend has it that any woman who trips on the steps will marry within the next year. In France, we can find the Chauvet Cave, which is sometimes also called the Chauvet Cave because of the region it belongs to. This is one of the world's most vitally important historical sites. Within the Chauvet Cave are some of the oldest, best preserved, and most artistic cave paintings anywhere on the planet. Human habitation within the cave dates back to the Upper Paleolithic period, but it wasn't rediscovered until 1994. Different walls within the cave appear to be dedicated to paintings of different animals, for example, the Gallery of the Lions. Close to the paintings, archaeologists have discovered human and animal remains, some of which belong to species which have long since become extinct. Radiocarbon dating, which has been performed within Chauvet Cave, puts the date of human habitation somewhere between 32,000 and 39,000 years ago. Who could have imagined that our distant ancestors could paint like this? If you mention Egyptian architecture and wonders to somebody, the first things they'll think of are the pyramids and the ancient temples. There's a good reason for that. They're awe-inspiring. There are other temples in Egypt, which are well worth a visit to though, even though they're not really as old. These rugged and dramatic buildings are the cave churches of the Zabaleen, a nomadic group of Coptic Christian garbage collectors who settled in the Cairo area after being evicted from Giza in 1970. By 1976, they began to feel more at home in their environment and decided to build themselves a church beneath the Mokattam mountain. Can you believe that these beautiful buildings were created by poor people with no formal architectural skills less than 50 years ago? With capacity for 20,000 worshippers, the largest of the cave churches is the Monastery of St. Simon the Tanner, which is the single biggest Christian church anywhere in the Middle East. In Coptic mythology, it was Simon the Tanner who moved the Mokattam mountain to its current position in the first place. It's impossible for human beings to get to the center of the Earth. It's boiling hot, and the magma layer would stop anyone from even getting close. If you want to get an idea for what such a journey might feel like, however, you could try getting to the bottom of the Krubera-Voronya Cave, which is in the Abkhazai region of Georgia. This is the deepest cave in the world, extending into the darkness for more than 7,000 feet. The cave is in an area of land that's difficult to reach, constantly troubled by severe weather conditions and surrounded by political conflicts and fighting. That's why even though we know it's there, we still don't know as much about it as we'd like to. What we can tell you is that there's a frozen waterfall 5,000 feet down. And if you're able to get past it and continue your voyage in the treacherous conditions, you'll eventually find a terminal siphon at the bottom. Only one team of Ukrainians have managed to make it down that far to date, and it took them 2 entire weeks to do it. Walking into the Reed Flute Cave in Guilin, China, feels a little like stepping foot into a fairy tale. It's a multicolored palace of wonder. The colors aren't all natural. They've been enhanced by floodlights which have been installed since its discovery during the 1940s. But even if they weren't there, Reed Flute Cave is a spectacular sight to feast your eyes on. The musical name of this cave comes from the plethora of reeds which grow around its entrance, which are harvested for the construction of flutes. Nobody knew the cave was here until refugees fleeing the Second World War ran into it for shelter and stumbled across the internal landscape of stalactites and stalagmites, all of which have been caused by soft limestone slowly eroding from exposure to water. Archaeological investigation of the site after its discovery found carvings and writing on the warped and rippling walls, indicating that humans once lived here during the time of the Tang Dynasty, possibly around the year 800. It's not a bad place to hide out from the bombs. If somebody told you that a nearby cave was a portal to hell, you'd probably be best advised not to go delving into it. Fortunately for us, not everyone takes the best advice. If they did, we'd have been denied the wondrous sight of the Reinsenfeld Cave in Austria, which is below Hochkugel Mountain, not far from Salzburg. According to local myth and legend, this cave is known as the world of the ice giants. All you need to do is look at it once, and you'll know why the ancient Austrians believed that ice giants once lived here. The bizarre-looking construction of the cave is the result of ice slowly building up over time beneath a pre-existing cave, formed due to a unique combination of limestone and lava. The locals wouldn't even set foot in it, but an adventurer named Anton Posselt found it too big a temptation to resist in 1879. There was no sign of the devil, and so over time, tourists have slowly caught on to the idea. It now regularly receives around 250,000 visitors every year. This breathtaking all-blue site in the Grotta Azzurra in Italy, also known as the Blue Grotto. It might be one of the most outstanding sites of natural beauty anywhere in the world, but getting to it is far from easy. It involves persuading someone to take you in a rowboat, finding a gap in the tide, and sailing the boats straight through the opening of a cliff face. The blue effect is the result of the interior of the cave perfectly reflecting the still blue water. Italians have been enjoying the grotto for centuries. It was recorded as a favorite place to visit for Emperor Tiberius whenever he wanted to go for a swim. It fell out of use for a while after the time of ancient Rome, but became fashionable again after being visited by the great American writer Mark Twain in 1869, who wrote of its beauty in his travel memoir, Innocents Abroad. Sadly, visitors are no longer permitted to swim in the grotto, so if you do visit, you'll have to stay on board your boat. Tano de las Golondrinas in Mexico is an interesting test of bravery. If you'll want to find out how daring you are, you're invited to pay a visit to the cave. Stand at the edge and look down. If it makes your stomach churn, consider the fact that some people come here to perform base jumping. They literally jump off into the void. The Mexican name for the cave is the Basement of Swallows, and it's an aperture in the earth. The entrance is a 200-foot hole in a forest, which opens into a near-vertical 1,900-foot plunge. The entire Eiffel Tower could fit inside the cave, and the tip would still be below the surface. The birds don't seem to mind it, though. The cave is named for the birds which live and nest both around and inside it. Its existence was a secret, known only to the native Hostek people until 1966, when a trio of foreign explorers rappelled into its depths. It would take 10 seconds to free fall to the bottom, but 40 minutes to climb back up again. South Africa is happy to show off the Kango Caves to visitors, but only some of them. There are over 2.5 miles of this cave network in the Swartberg foothills, but less than a quarter of them are accessible to the public, and even then access is only permitted as part of a registered tour. Because the caves are full of paintings and carvings, scientists have been able to conclusively prove that they were once used by humans as long ago as the Stone Age. As with many of the caves we've seen, they were forgotten for a long time until a farmer rediscovered them by chance in 1780. The spiky limestone caves may yet have some more secrets contained within them. One explorer claims to have made his way through over 15 miles of cave and descended almost 1,000 feet below the surface, where he found an underground river. Modern experts are still looking for it. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!